Hello and welcome to Indus News, live from Islamabad. I am Munib Hamid with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the top stories first. In Afghanistan, gunmen have killed 10 workers of an international landmine clearing charity and injured 16 others in northern Baghlan province. The Interior Ministry has accused the Taliban of carrying out the attack, but the group has denied any involvement. Earlier, the Taliban claimed to have shot down a military helicopter in Maidan Wardak province, killing all on board. Syrian army's air defenses have intercepted an Israeli missile strike over the capital Damascus. Syria state media says the Israeli army launched the attack from over the Lebanese territory, targeting the central and southern regions. They said the strike caused only material damage. US President Joe Biden has extended sanctions against Belarus by another year. In a White House statement, Biden slammed Minsk for committing human rights abuses and engaging in public corruption. The curbs target 10 Belarusian officials and bar Americans from engaging in any transactions with them. Meanwhile, President Alexander Lukashenko has signed into law prison sentences for those who protest or insult state officials. In India, the COVID-19 has claimed over 2,200 more lives while infecting more than 92,000 in the past 24 hours. Meanwhile, Pakistan has registered 77 new deaths and just over 1,100 infections overnight. Globally, more than 3.7 million people have died from the virus and over 173 million have been infected so far. These were the top stories. News in detail is coming after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now let's have the news in detail. We'll start from Afghanistan, where in the northern Baghlan province, gunmen have killed 10 workers of an international landmine clearing charity and injured 16 others. The Interior Ministry has accused the Taliban of carrying out the attack in the Baghlan-e-Markazi district of the province. However, the group has condemned the attack, denying any involvement. Earlier, the Taliban claimed to have shot down a military helicopter in Maidan Wardak province, killing all on board. The Defense Ministry cited technical issues as the reason behind the helicopter crash, saying 3 crew members have been killed and 1 other wounded. The Taliban also claimed to have conquered the Cha-e-Ab district of Thakar province, causing heavy casualties to the military. The Taliban spokesman added they've attacked Afghan forces in Khost province, leaving 25 security personnel dead. The government did not comment on the Taliban's claim. Syrian army's air defenses have intercepted an Israeli missile strike over the capital Damascus. State media says the Israeli army launched the attack from over the Lebanese territory. It said the strike caused only material damage. Some Syrian state media outlets said the strikes hit Homs province near Lebanon. The Israeli military has not commented on the matter so far. Now, the US Senate has approved legislation to boost Washington's ability to compete with Chinese technology. The bill must now pass the House of Representatives before being signed into law by President Joe Biden. The 100-member chamber voted 68 to 32 to pass the measure. It authorizes the use of $190 billion to strengthen U.S. technology and research. The bill separately approves $54 billion to increase production and research into semiconductors. It also prohibits the download of social media app TikTok and blocks the purchase of China-manufactured drones.
This bill could be the turning point for American leadership in the 21st century. And for that reason, this legislation will go down as one of the most significant bipartisan achievements of the U.S. Senate in recent history.
U.S. President Joe Biden has extended sanctions against Belarus by another year. The curbs target 10 Belarusian officials and bar Americans from engaging in any transactions with them. The White House says Belarus's actions pose an extraordinary threat to U.S. national security and foreign policy. Biden slammed Minsk for committing human rights abuses and engaging in public corruption. He said such actions undermine democratic processes and institutions. Meanwhile, President Alexander Lukashenko has signed into law prison sentences for those who protect or insult state officials. Now in India, the COVID-19 has claimed over 2,200 more lives while infecting more than 92,000 in the past 24 hours. Globally, more than 3.7 million people have died from the virus and over 173 million have been infected so far. More about the pandemic in this report. As the developing nations struggle to fund COVID-19 inoculations, the World Bank has ruled out support for waiving intellectual property rights for COVID-19 vaccines to help reduce the cost of fighting the pandemic. This comes as World Trade Organization member nations are taking up a proposal to ease patent protections for vaccines. In the US, authorities are scrambling to extend the shelf life of Johnson & Johnson's vaccine as millions of unused surplus doses approach expiration. The country has also eased travel recommendations for more than 110 countries and territories, including Japan, just ahead of the Olympics. In Mexico, students in capital Mexico City returned to school as COVID-19 cases and deaths dipped to lowest levels in over a year.
It is a challenge. We have to re-educate our children who used to hug each other and share everything, even food. Today, they cannot share their pencils, their notebook. They cannot give their classmates even a taste of their sandwiches. We all have to learn that this is a new normality. Things have changed.
Uruguay has released data on the impact of Sinovac vaccine that showed it was more than 90% effective. Over in the UK, the number of COVID-19 cases in the past week has increased by 60% as compared to the previous week. German Chancellor Angela Merkel has called on the world to learn from the corona crisis to work in a more sustainable manner.
Das verlangt, dass wir schon jetzt
This requires us thinking about life after Corona, moving out of Corona crisis sustainably, as they called it. This means that we must not content ourselves with somehow returning to pre-Corona situation. We must do everything by using economic and social recovery to live and work more innovatively, more digitally, more resiliently, more environment-friendly, and in short, more sustainably.
Meanwhile, South Africa has put its health minister on special leave over alleged links to a corruption scandal involving coronavirus funding. In African countries, thousands of vaccine doses have been destroyed as they exceeded expiry dates amid lack of medical infrastructure. Meanwhile, Pakistan has recorded 1977 lives overnight. The health ministry says the death toll has surged to 21,453. It said the virus has infected another 1,100 people over the past 24 hours. There are about 45,000 active cases in the country at present. Just over 3,000 of them are in critical condition. Pakistan has recorded over 936,000 cases and nearly 870,000 recoveries since the pandemic began. Meanwhile, the country has recorded this year's lowest positivity ratio at 2.54%. Planning Minister Asad Umar says the number of vaccinations will exceed 10 million today. Moving on now, the Royal Saudi Land Forces have launched a joint exercise with US forces in Saudi Arabia's northwestern region. In a statement, the Saudi Defense Ministry said the Falcon Clause 4 drills aims to strengthen mutual military relations between the two countries. They said the exercises will unify military concepts through joint action between the forces of both states. The exercises also aim to exchange military information and experiences, improve compatibility between military equipment and doctrines. Now, the US says Iran's non-cooperation with UN nuclear watchdog will jeopardize the 2015 nuclear deal revival talks underway in Vienna. In a statement to the agency's Board of Governors, Washington urged Iran to let the watchdog continue its monitoring activities unhindered. Meanwhile, diplomats said a number of outstanding issues continue delaying US return to the JCPOA and Tehran's full compliance. Earlier, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken said sanctions on Iran may remain in place even if the deal is revived. Testifying before a Senate committee, Blinken also said that Iran needs to change its behavior. Moreover, the potential change of Iranian leadership after June 18 presidential elections are also expected to present challenges to the talks. However, an Iranian presidential spokesperson has declared that Tehran's nuclear talks policy won't change after the vote. The US says the situation in military-ruled Myanmar is concerning and continues to get worse. At a virtual event, Joe Biden's policy coordinator Kurt Campbell said Washington is looking at all possible scenarios. So the White House does not only see challenges from ethnic insurgencies, but they also see much more organized and determined opposition on the Democratic side. Campbell said the US privately backs the efforts of ASEAN for a return to democracy. Meanwhile, the anti-junta protests continue in Mandalay, Dawei, Kachin and Maing regions. Rights groups say security forces have killed 857 people so far. Now in India, at least 17 people have died after a bus collided with a loader vehicle in the northern state of Uttar Pradesh. Police say many others were injured in the accident. They say the speeding bus overturned and fell into a ditch in Kanpur Nagar district near Lucknow. Authorities say the passengers got trapped in the wreckage, halting the rescue process. They said the bus from Lucknow was en route to Delhi and carried laborers. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris says the root causes of migration in Central America will not be fixed overnight. She was talking to reporters at the end of a two-day trip to Guatemala and Mexico. Kamala Harris called for deeper engagement to address why people choose to leave their home countries. Earlier, Harris and Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador agreed to deepen economic ties. Harris and López Obrador also witnessed the signing of an MOU on development agencies working in Central America. The accord is aimed at reducing the number of migrants from Central American countries to the U.S. through Mexico. The meeting follows Harris's Monday visit to Guatemala, where she met President Alejandro. The Biden administration has announced a number of new commitments to combat trafficking, smuggling and corruption. Moving on now, Eritrea has blamed the U.S. for supporting the Tigray People's Liberation Movement in northern Ethiopia's Tigray region. In a letter to the UN Security Council, Eritrean Foreign Minister Osman Saleh accused the Biden administration for stoking conflict through interference. He added Washington is trying to resuscitate the remnants of the TPLF regime. The rebels led the coalition that ruled Ethiopia for nearly 30 years until Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed rose to power in 2018. Abiy further alienated the TPLF by making peace with longtime foe Eritrea as soon as he took office. Last November, the Prime Minister launched a military operation in the region in response to the rebels' attacks on federal army camps. Now, thousands of Canadians have held vigils to remember a Muslim family killed in London, Ontario. 4 people were run over by a truck in a premeditated hate crime. The victims included 3 women and a man, while the child remains hospitalized with serious injuries. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau joined the mourners as a grieving community stood united amid the crisis. Addressing the mourners in London, Trudeau vowed to take action to dismantle far-right groups.
There are no words that can undo the pain and, yes, the anger of this community. There are no words that can fix the future of that little boy who has had his future taken away. But know this: you are not alone. All Canadians mourn with you and stand with you tonight and always.
More news coming up in this news bulletin after a short break. Now, most Asia-Pacific stocks are trading lower. Investors are trading cautiously after China's producer inflation data for May came in higher than expected. Shell's Kospi is leading the losses, falling over 0.5%. The ASX 200 in Australia, Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index and Japan's Nikkei 225 have all slipped marginally. However, mainland Chinese shares have edged up. Now let's have a look at the weather updates. Well, that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus News.